My name is Tiffany Kane. I'm 37, a project manager by trade, a single mother by choice and circumstance, and the person everyone in my family calls when the chair wobbles or the sky is falling. If a fuse blows, I'm the flashlight. If a form confuses, I'm the pen. They say I'm dependable. What they mean is, I never say no. My daughter, Tessa, is 9. She reads everything: cereal boxes, bus ads, instruction manuals, like they're portals. Our apartment is small, bright in the morning, the smell of coffee woven into the walls, laundry humming like a gentle argument somewhere down the hall. It isn't fancy, but it's ours. 2 mugs, one tiny balcony, half claimed by a tomato plant that refuses to quit, and a rug Tessa says looks like confetti after a parade. It started on a Tuesday that wore the shape of every other Tuesday: traffic, aftercare pickup, the slow creep of hunger becoming impatience. We got home late. I set water to boil, opened my laptop to just clear a few emails, and told Tessa we'd do pasta and salad, the kind of dinner that forgives you for being tired. She grated cheese like she was mining snow from a mountain, precise and proud. I told myself I'd answer 2 messages, maybe 3. The stove hummed. The world took a breath. My phone buzzed on the counter. Mom. I let it ring. Then Aaron, my younger brother, 6 years my junior, and 6 times as certain that the world should arrange itself nicely around his plans. Then Mom again. I wasn't ready for that committee meeting, not with Tessa humming to herself and the pot thinking about boiling. The first mistake was practical. My Bluetooth speaker, the little trader I keep in Tessa's backpack for audiobooks, was still on. The second mistake wasn't mine. A voicemail auto-connected and bloomed across our kitchen, too loud for the size of our life. "Hey," said Chloe's voice, silky, cheerful, that particular sweetness people use when they're about to draw blood with a paper cut. "So, we went over the numbers. It's not going to work if people bring extra kids unless they're, helpful. You already sent the 56, which thank you, but we're bumping gift budgets for Inner Circle. Double it or no additional kids after cocktail hour. That includes Tessa. She's adorable, but we only have room for priorities. Don't make this hard. Love you." The words didn't land. They settled, like smoke, the kind you realize is there because you can't taste your own dinner anymore. Tessa froze mid-grate, the cheese clinging to the metal like it had heard something indecent. She didn't look at me first. She looked at the counter, then at her hands, as if checking whether she'd done something wrong by existing in our kitchen on a Tuesday at 7:30. "Hey," I said, crossing the room. The speaker was still glowing a dumb, loyal blue. My thumb snapped it silent. "You didn't do anything wrong." Tessa nodded once, a tiny bow. "It's okay, Mom," she whispered, and the way she said okay was soft and adult. "I can stay home if it helps." She meant I can be less so you don't have to fight. Something in my chest felt like a zipper tugged the wrong direction. It snagged on years of little favors and big rescues, on casual requests dressed as family tradition. It snagged on the way Mom says family, as if the word might lower the bill at the bottom of the menu. I kissed the top of Tessa's head. Her hair smelled like the cheap peach shampoo we both love. "You are not a problem to solve," I told her. "You are the whole point." We ate anyway, because pasta always forgives. I laughed at the right parts of her story about a classmate who taped pencils to her fingers and called them learning claws. We stacked dishes. We fed the tomato plant a mason jar of sink water, like an offering to a small, stubborn god. But the room had changed. The quiet felt full of things unsaid. By bedtime, my phone tallied missed calls like a scoreboard. 6. By midnight, 11. By morning, when light makes everything look like it can be fixed with Windex, 47. But that night, our Tuesday night, there were only 2 people in the world: a little girl who had just learned that grown-ups sometimes turn children into line items, and her mother who had taught everyone, for too long, that she would pay to keep the peace. I stood in the doorway while Tessa arranged her stuffed sloth, Sergeant Knapp, as if he were also bracing for impact. "Do you think Auntie Chloe doesn't like kids?" she asked, eyes on the ceiling. "I think some people like rules more than people," I said, "and sometimes they confuse mood with kindness. Like when you put candles out and then don't let anyone breathe," she said. "Exactly." She seemed satisfied by the image and rolled to her side. Can I still wear the sparkly shoes if I go? If you go, you can wear the sparkly shoes, I said, and left the if hanging where it belonged. In their hands, not ours. When Tessa slept, mouth open, book tented on her chest like a roof, I opened the spreadsheet, the one I keep for my sanity, the one coded in soothing greens and grays, like I could color correct my life. $1,700 in May for the venue deposit. You're a lifesaver, Chloe texted. 8 heart emojis. $2,000 in July because the florist was visionary and locked in, which apparently means expensive. $900 in August for the photographer's retainer. She's the only one who gets our vibe. $1,000 last week because the tasting had a minimum and it wouldn't be fair to ask his parents again. $5,600 total. A number with a shadow. The ledger calmed me. It made the story neat while it ate me. It made my family feel like a math problem that could be solved by showing my work. My history with being useful reads like a resume nobody hires for. At 22, when Dad's knee surgery met a cruel deductible, I put the gap on my card and learned that relief wears your name on its back. At 23, the AC died in July, and I bought everyone air again. At 25, Aaron chased a job in LA he found on a blog that no longer exists and signed a lease with a landlord who loved cosigners. Guess who had the best credit? Mom would say, family is family, with a little smile, as if we shared a coupon code. Useful has gravity. It pulls everything toward it. Apologies, excuses, the phrase, just this once, wearing a false mustache. And I, dutiful as the tide, came in when they called. Not because I am soft, because I am careful. Because I remember being 19 and watching the refrigerator light land on 3 things. Half a lemon, sriracha, and hope. And I swore my child would never know that feeling. But somewhere along the timeline, useful turned into payable. And love became something I kept receipts for. I scrolled the message history with Mom. Let my eyes blur over the familiar shapes. We just need a bridge. This one last piece. Be a sweetheart. And then paused on the text from last Friday. Now we can breathe. I had stared at it then, rubbed the knot between my eyes and wondered, who exactly is we? The speaker's blue eye had watched me the whole time from the counter. I picked it up, held it like a confession. In the living room, the city's noise stitched itself through the window screen. Mopeds, laughter, a siren far away and small. I let the voicemail play again, quietly now, like a dare. Double it, no additional kids. Only room for priorities. It didn't hurt less. It just fit better into what I already knew. The next morning would bring the storm. Mom's, you're being dramatic. Aaron's, I don't control everything. Chloe's smile sharpened to a point, but the decision was already unwinding itself in me, patient and inevitable. Not a speech, not a confrontation, something simpler, a sentence even, maybe 3. I closed the laptop, washed the last dish, dried my hands on a towel so thin I could read a life through it. I went to Tessa's door and watched her sleep for a count of 10, the way mothers do, when they are reminding themselves of the contract they never signed, but keep anyway. On the fridge, the grocery list waited. Milk, bread, foil, birthday card for Emma. I took the pen, stared at the margin, and drew a small square. In it, I wrote 4 words without thinking. We don't owe anyone. The pot on the stove was cold by then, the water stilled to its own reflection. I saw my face there, warier than I'd like, steadier than they hoped, and I thought, I have been buying peace on layaway and calling it love. I thought, they have mistaken my silence for permission. I thought, my daughter heard the truth before I was brave enough to say it. I turned off the speaker, turned off the kitchen light. In the soft dark, I rehearsed nothing. I let the quiet be loud enough to carry me to morning. For the first time, I understood the simplest math. If they put a price on my child's presence, the bill does not belong to me. By morning, the air in our apartment smelled like burnt toast and second thoughts. The world looked the same, but I didn't. Something small had shifted. Not enough to see from the outside, but enough that the coffee didn't taste like surrender anymore. Tessa was singing to herself while tying her shoes, her voice a thin ribbon of sound that kept me from unraveling. When she looked up, she asked, "Did Auntie Chloe say sorry?" I told her the truth. Not yet. She nodded once, Then she's probably still thinking. I smiled at that, the kind of naive mercy children offer freely before they learn that some adults use thinking as a way to hide from accountability. After dropping her off at school, I sat in my car longer than I meant to. My phone was full of red dots, 28 missed calls, 11 new messages, and one family group chat notification that I wasn't ready to open. For once, I didn't. Instead, I scrolled back through my bank app. Line after line, the numbers blinked like little reminders of every time I'd confused obligation for love. $1,700, venue deposit, $2,000, flowers, $900, photography, $1,000, catering minimum. It wasn't just money. Each transaction was a confession. I'll pay for your comfort if you promise to keep loving me. Growing up, my parents had a script. Dad, quiet and steady as a fence post. Mom, all diplomacy and sighs. Tiffany, sweetie, she'd say whenever I hesitated to help. We're family. We take care of each other. Except each other never really included me. When the dishwasher broke, I was the one who called the repairman. When the property taxes came due, I was the one who found a way. When Aaron forgot his wallet at lunch, I was the one who paid, and he promised he'd Venmo later. Venmo became a ghost story in our family. Something mentioned often, but no one had ever seen it happen. I'd been trained since childhood to treat help as my inheritance. When I was 22, Dad's knee surgery came with a deductible too steep for their savings. I was just out of college, still living in a cramped apartment with a roommate who labeled the milk, but I covered it anyway. We'll pay you back soon, Mom said. They never did. At 23, their air conditioner died in July. The repairman quoted $1,800. I paid the bill before I could think. It was so hot, Tiffany, Mom said later. You saved us. At 25, Aaron decided to chase a marketing job in LA that only existed in the recruiter's imagination. He signed a lease with a landlord who just needed a co-signer. Guess who had the best credit? Me, the dependable one. Family became a subscription service with automatic renewal, and I was too polite to cancel. I used to tell myself I didn't mind because I was building something stable, a life Tessa could count on. But the truth was uglier. I was building a system where saying no felt like betrayal. When Aaron got engaged, the first call I received wasn't, "We're so excited." It was, "We need to lock the venue." Then a shared spreadsheet arrived, color-coded and ambitious, like a small country's budget. There was a column labeled Family Contributions, my name already filled in, next to TBD. The notes were written like polite blackmail. Just to get started, you're our rock. Could you bridge this until Chloe's parents sort their side? Every transfer came with gratitude laced in guilt. Couldn't have done it without you. You're amazing. Don't tell Mom we're short again. The wedding wasn't about love. It was about logistics. And I kept paying because I wanted to believe I was part of something that would someday circle back to me. But now, with that voicemail still echoing in my skull, I saw every heart emoji as a receipt for respect that was never actually delivered. The next day at work, my concentration was a ghost. My coworker, Maya, noticed before I said a word. She's the kind of friend who can read your mood by how you stir your coffee. You look like someone just charged you for breathing, she said. I laughed, because that was exactly what it felt like. They did, I said, in the form of a wedding. Family? She asked. Of course. Maya leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. You know, you don't have to attend every emotional circus just because they hand you a ticket. I wanted to argue, but the truth stuck in my throat. She was right. I'd been the ringmaster of my own exploitation. That evening, when I got home, I pulled out the folder I'd been keeping for years, the one labeled Family Expenses. It was a thick envelope of receipts, bank slips, and printouts of transfers. I spread them across the table like crime scene evidence. The room felt smaller as the total took shape. Not $5,600, not even $10,000, closer to $47,000, over a decade of small rescues that no one even remembered. Rent payments, repairs, copays, deposits. Temporary loans that aged into fossils. A quiet rage settled under my skin. Not the explosive kind, but the steady heat of realization. For years, I'd been building my family's comfort at the expense of my own freedom. Brick by brick, transfer by transfer. And yet every time I hesitated, Mom would call with that same gentle guilt. Money isn't everything, sweetheart. She only said it when I stopped giving it. That night, I cooked dinner while Tessa practiced tying bows on her stuffed sloth. The TV hummed in the background with a commercial for a luxury resort. Tessa looked up and asked, "Can we ever go somewhere like that?" I smiled, cutting vegetables I couldn't taste. Maybe one day. But in my head, the math was shifting. Maybe one day starts when I stop saying yes. Before bed, I checked my messages. Mom again. "We're so sorry about that voicemail, honey. It was taken out of context. Don't let it ruin the mood before the big day." Aaron had added, "Chloe didn't mean it like that." You know how she gets about guest lists. Then Chloe, with a heart emoji, for good measure. "You've been so generous, Tiffany. Don't let one misunderstanding undo all your kindness." Kindness. What a convenient word for control. I turned my phone face down. In the kitchen, the light over the stove flickered once and steadied. I poured a glass of water and stared at the reflection of the fridge magnet that said, "Love grows best in little homes." I whispered, "Only if love isn't rented?" That night, I reopened my spreadsheet, the same one that had been both a comfort and a curse. I renamed it Boundaries. At the top, I added a new line. Starting now, no is a complete sentence. For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar crawling up through the exhaustion. It wasn't bitterness, it was relief. Tomorrow, I'd write 3 messages, 3 short, quiet sentences that would change everything. I didn't know how they'd react, but I knew this. I was done paying for peace. By Thursday morning, the decision had settled into me like calm water, still on the surface, but with a current beneath it that couldn't be reversed. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was too noisy, too temporary. What I felt was something quieter, something sturdier. Clarity. At work, my inbox blinked like a patient heartbeat. I answered what I could, but my mind stayed elsewhere, rehearsing the 3 sentences I was going to send. Maya had been right. I didn't need a speech. I needed boundaries that spoke for themselves. During lunch, I sat in the courtyard behind our building, the kind of in-between place where people eat sandwiches and scroll through lives that look happier than theirs. The sunlight hit the screen of my phone, and I saw my reflection. Tired, certain, unrecognizable from the woman who once believed family loyalty and financial servitude were the same thing. I opened the family group chat. For a moment, my thumb hesitated. Decades of conditioning told me that if I said no, I'd be the problem, that my mother would sigh, my brother would joke, and the guilt would come in polite waves. But then I thought of Tessa's face when she said, "I can stay home if it helps." That was the sound of generational debt being born, and I refused to let it grow. So I typed, "From now on, Tessa and I will attend the wedding according to the original invitation terms. I won't be making additional contributions. Please don't call me at work." Then I sent a separate text to Dad. "Please don't smooth this over behind my back. That's part of the problem." And to the wedding planner, whose name I had learned far too well, "Please remove me from all logistics and vendor communications. Any financial discussions should go directly to Aaron and Chloe." 3 sentences, 3 boundaries. Send, send, send. I expected to feel anxious. Instead, I felt free. By 2 p.m., the storm began. "Mom, sweetheart, this is so unlike you. Are you feeling overwhelmed?" Aaron, "Tiff, we already counted you in for the rehearsal dinner. Don't make things complicated." Chloe, "I really wish you'd called instead of making it awkward in writing." The irony made me laugh. They'd spent years treating my silence as currency, but the moment I put my words in writing, I became the rude one. I locked my phone screen and slid it face down on my desk. When I picked Tessa up that afternoon, she ran into my arms, all knees and motion and life. I breathed her in. The smell of crayons, shampoo, and something purely her. "Guess what?" she said, waving a paper. "I got picked to read the morning announcements tomorrow." Her grin stretched wide and fearless. For the first time in days, I smiled without effort. "That's my girl," I said. "What are you going to say?" She cleared her throat dramatically. "Good morning, Riverside Elementary. Please stand for the pledge." Her voice cracked, and she giggled, burying her face in my shoulder. At that moment, everything that mattered fit in my arms. That night, we made grilled cheese and tomato soup, the poor man's comfort food, but Tessa swore it tasted like happiness. We watched a cartoon rerun, and for once, I didn't multitask. I didn't open my laptop. I didn't scroll through bills or emails. I just watched her laugh. Halfway through the show, my phone started buzzing again. Mom, Aaron, Mom, Chloe, Mom. It danced on the counter like something alive. I let it. Tessa glanced at it, then at me. "Aren't you going to answer?" "Nope." "Are you mad at them?" I shook my head. "No, I'm just done explaining." She considered that, then nodded. "Like when you say bedtime is bedtime." I smiled. "Exactly. Boundaries. Simple ones. ones a child could understand. By 9 p.m., my phone showed 21 missed calls. One voicemail from Mom that began with, "Tiffany, I don't know what's gotten into you," and ended with, "This family needs peace." But peace, I realized, had always been her word for control. The next morning, the group chat lit up like fireworks. Erin's messages came fast and frantic. Chloe's upset. "You're embarrassing us. You've always been dramatic." Mom jumped in to mediate, which was her favorite sport. "Tiff, sweetheart, you're making things harder than they need to be. We're family. Let's not ruin something so special over a misunderstanding." I typed, deleted, retyped, and finally sent one line. "Boundaries aren't misunderstandings." Then I muted the chat. Later that afternoon, Maya stopped by my desk. "You look like you finally exorcised a demon," she said. Maybe I did. "You ready for the backlash?" I shrugged. "They'll call it selfish. They always do when you stop volunteering as tribute." She laughed, soft but knowing. "Good. Let them learn." That evening, Tessa and I went for a walk, the kind where she kicked every leaf in sight, and I let her. The air had that late autumn chill that smells like endings. At the corner, we passed a shop window displaying wedding dresses, layers of white, sparkling under fake lights. Tessa pressed her face to the glass. "Do you think Auntie Chloe's dress looks like that?" "Probably," I said. "Would you wear one like that?" I thought about it. "No, mine would have pockets." She laughed, delighted. "You'd put snacks in it." "Exactly," I said, smiling. "Never go hungry for anyone." It was a joke, but it wasn't. That night, I opened my laptop again, but not for work. I went into the shared wedding folder and quietly removed myself from access. My cursor hovered over the Leave Group button in the family chat for a long time. Then I clicked it. The silence that followed was the kind that doesn't echo. It settles. It stays. When I crawled into bed, Tessa was already asleep, one arm flung across the sloth. I watched her chest rise and fall and thought, this is the peace I was paying for all along. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty for keeping it. The invitation to the final menu tasting arrived 2 days later. Subject line: Family Appreciation Night. Dress smart casual. It was Chloe's handwriting all over, warm, sugary, and unmistakably transactional. The kind of message that said, let's pretend we're fine so I can still get what I want. For a while, I hovered over decline. But then I thought about something Maya once said. Sometimes you need to sit in the same room so they can't edit the truth later. So I went. The restaurant was the kind of place that believed the smaller the food, the bigger the price tag. Long table, white tablecloths, rosemary sprigs pretending to be forests. A single candle flickered at each setting, like the illusion of warmth. When I arrived, Mom's face lit up, not with affection, but with relief. "Oh, good, you came," she said, patting my arm. "I told them you'd come to your senses." I smiled politely. "I didn't come for senses, Mom. I came for clarity." She blinked, confused, then turned her attention to the server. Erin and Chloe sat at the head of the table, side by side, the way people do when they're playing house with other people's money. Chloe's smile was glossy, all PR and no pulse. "Tiffany," she cooed, "we're so glad you're here. Let's just clear the air, okay? It's been a week." I said, taking my seat. A week tends to feel longer when the air's already polluted. Aaron shot me a warning look, the same one he used to give when we were kids, and I refused to share my Halloween candy. Mom jumped in fast, ever the peace broker. Now, let's not start with tension. We're here to taste and celebrate." "Right," Chloe said, nodding too quickly. "Speaking of taste," she gestured to the plates. "Truffle soup shots, aren't they adorable?" I lifted mine, sniffed, and thought, adorable isn't edible. The evening stretched itself thin. Every course came with a compliment I didn't feel like giving. Every toast came with a reminder of how much I'd already paid for this illusion of harmony. Then, halfway through, Chloe folded her napkin into a neat triangle and turned to me. "We got your texts," she said, smiling tight. "We understand you're feeling overwhelmed." Aaron added, "You've always carried too much. We don't want you to feel pressured." I tilted my head. "You mean the pressure of paying for things you can't afford while pretending it's gratitude?" Mom gasped. "Tiffany!" Chloe's eyes flickered, a crack in the performance. "You're acting like we asked you to fund a yacht. It's a wedding, for family." "Exactly," I said. And yet, family somehow turned into a membership tier. "Tiff, please," Aaron started, but I cut him off. "You know what? Let's skip the spin." I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and tapped the screen. The same cursed voicemail filled the air. Chloe's voice spilling across the table like spilled champagne. Double it or no additional kids after cocktail hour. That includes Tessa. She's adorable, but we only have room for priorities. Silence. The waiter froze mid-step. Someone's fork hit their plate like punctuation. Erin's jaw went slack. Chloe, you didn't... I didn't mean, she stammered. Mom recovered first, her tone sharp as glass. That's out of context. I met her eyes. The context is months of invoices disguised as invitations. It's years of being told love comes with a payment plan. I reached into my bag again and slid a small stack of printed emails onto the table. May 12th. We'll lose the venue deposit. It'll break Erin's heart. July 2nd. You're his sister. This is what family does. Last week. Just one last bridge, sweetheart. Chloe flushed deep red. Erin muttered something to her, but she didn't meet his eyes. Across the table, Dad sat rigid, his jaw tightening. Silent, but not neutral. I saw something in him then, something cracked open by shame. Mom whispered, "You're humiliating your brother." "No," I said quietly. "I'm reminding him who's been humiliated all along." The wedding planner, poor woman, cleared her throat, breaking the silence like a referee stepping into a boxing ring. "If I may," she said cautiously, "the cost increase for allowing children to stay past cocktail hour is approximately $1,600. That's the only adjustment needed." I turned to her. "So, if we cut the oyster bar or the neon sign, there's room for every kid, including Tessa?" She nodded. "Easily." Chloe sputtered. "The neon sign is a moment." "And telling a child she's not welcome?" I asked. "That's a moment too, just not one you can post on Instagram." Mom hissed, "Tiffany, you're being cruel." "No," I said, gathering my things. "I'm being clear." I stood, folded my napkin small, and set it beside the untouched dessert, a macaron that cost more than a day of groceries. "Enjoy your tasting," I said. "I'm done being the flavor you take for granted." Then I walked out. Outside, the night air was sharp, clean. I could still hear murmurs through the glass as the door swung shut behind me. Erin's low voice, Chloe's brittle defense, Mom's practiced sighs. The sound faded with every step I took toward the parking lot. Halfway to my car, my phone buzzed. I didn't look. I didn't have to. The voicemail had already said everything that mattered. On the train home, the city lights flickered through the window like someone flipping through old slides of my life. The woman in those slides was tired, smiling through every family photo, holding everything together so no one else had to. I didn't recognize her anymore. When I got home, Tessa was asleep on the couch, her sloth tucked under one arm, a half-finished drawing of a castle on the coffee table. I brushed her hair off her forehead, kissed her temple, and whispered, "No one gets to decide your worth, sweetheart. Not even family." The apartment was quiet, small, warm. The only room in my life that didn't charge me rent for being myself. And for the first time, that was enough. The next morning, the world didn't end. It just rearranged itself. The first ping came at 6:42 a.m., Mom's text. "Tiffany, we need to talk. You humiliated everyone last night. Family doesn't air private matters in public." I set the phone face down beside my coffee mug and took a slow sip. The bitterness fit the morning. 10 minutes later, "Sweetheart, this isn't who you are. You're letting pride destroy your relationships." No, I thought. I'm letting truth rebuild them. By 9 a.m., Erin called. Twice. I ignored the first, then answered the second. "Hey," he said, voice low, tired. "You didn't have to do that in front of everyone." "I didn't," I said calmly. "You did, when you let Chloe speak for both of you." He sighed. "She was stressed. The wedding, and isn't an excuse to devalue a child," I finished. "Or a sister." Silence. I could hear the weight of it pressing through the line. Finally, he said, "You were right about the money. I should have stepped up. I just thought you didn't mind." "That's the problem, Erin," I said. "You've mistaken silence for comfort." By afternoon, the group chat had transformed into a battlefield. Mom's messages layered guilt like wallpaper. Dad stayed silent. Always the diplomat through absence. Chloe, though, broke her silence first. "Tiffany, I want to apologize. I spoke carelessly. I shouldn't have brought Tessa into a budget discussion. That wasn't fair." I stared at the message. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. "Thank you," I replied. "That's all that needed to be said." Minutes later, another message popped up from an unknown number, Chloe's mother. "We heard what happened. Please know Tessa is absolutely welcome. We'll cover the additional cost ourselves. Children make celebrations brighter." I blinked at the words, the sincerity in them. For the first time in months, I felt my jaw unclench. That weekend, the house was full of small victories. Tessa scored a goal at her soccer game, her first of the season. She ran toward me afterward, arms out, shouting, "Did you see that, Mom?" I did, every second. We celebrated with tacos from the food truck near the park. She wanted two. I said yes. At home, she practiced her dance for the wedding reception in front of the mirror. "Do you think it's okay if I spin during the slow song?" she asked. I smiled. "Sweetheart, if you want to spin, spin." Her laughter filled the room like sunlight. A few days later, an envelope arrived. Thick ivory paper, calligraphy on the front. To the Kane family. Inside was a handwritten note from Aaron. "Tiff, I've been doing a lot of thinking. You didn't ruin anything. You just stopped pretending. I let money talk louder than respect, and that's on me. I hope you and Tessa will still come. She's part of this family, and I miss my sister. Aaron." I folded the letter carefully, pressed it flat against my chest for a moment, then placed it on the counter. Forgiveness didn't come instantly, but understanding did. The wedding day itself felt strange. Familiar faces, stiff smiles, the hum of rehearsed joy. But when Tessa and I walked in, heads turned, not because of scandal, but because she was radiant. Pink dress, sparkly shoes, hair pinned with tiny stars. Chloe approached us, nervous. "You look beautiful, Tessa," she said. "Thank you," Tessa replied politely, then added, "Mom says we don't owe anyone to be happy." The table nearest us went quiet. Chloe's lips parted, but then she smiled. "She's right," she said softly. For once, I believed her. The reception was better than I'd expected. No neon sign, no oyster bar, but laughter, real laughter. Aaron toasted Mom and Dad, then turned toward me. "And to my sister," he said, raising his glass. "Thank you for teaching me that peace bought with silence isn't peace at all." The room applauded. Mom dabbed her eyes. Dad actually smiled. Tessa leaned in and whispered, "Are we allowed to dance now?" "Yes," I said, laughing. "Now we are." We danced until our feet ached, until the lights blurred into soft gold and the music wrapped around us like forgiveness. That night, when we got home, I tacked a note to the fridge, handwritten, underlined twice. House rules. My child is not leverage. Help is voluntary. No strings, no guilt. Dignity is not negotiable. Tessa drew a star beside each rule, giggling. "Can I add one?" "Sure." She wrote, 5. Always dance if there's music. Weeks later, Mom called. Her tone softer, her words slower. "I've been thinking, Tiffany. I didn't realize how much we asked of you. I'm sorry." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard her say. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Let's start fresh, with respect, not requests." "I'd like that," she whispered. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and let the quiet fill the room. The same table where I'd once listened to Chloe's voicemail felt different now. Lighter, like it no longer carried the weight of everyone else's expectations. I wasn't the family ATM anymore. I wasn't the steady one who fixed every mess. I was Tiffany Kane, mother, provider, boundary setter, and finally, her own person. I glanced at the fridge and smiled at Tessa's rule. Music or not, I decided, I'd keep dancing anyway. Because for the first time, the rhythm was mine.